Welcome to Law Excellence Hindu News Analysis. Today we are going to cover these 6 topics that are appeared in the Hindu newspaper. Now coming to the first article. Now this article is saying that a lake ecosystem gasping for breath. Now this article is about Ashtamudi Lake in Kerala. Now what this article is saying, now recently there is a fish kill happened in the Ashtamudi Lake. These are the images of the fish that are died in the Ashtamudi Lake, right? Now Ashtamudi is a Ramsar site in Kerala. Now what happened? Because of the seeping of industrial sewage, household sewage waste into the wetland, and because of which the river is polluted. And this article is highlighting there are a lot of microplastics because of dumping of the household waste into the wetland. Hence, there is a mismanagement of this wetland. There is lack of proper awareness about the people. Now, all these are the mentioned in this article. Now, from the examination perspective, you have to know, especially from the prelims perspective, certain facts regarding Ashtamudi Lake. Why? In previous year prelims question, if you see, it was asking wetland and location. Now, clearly it was said that Sassamkota also asked. Sassamkota is in Kerala, right? Now, things like that, you have to match wetland and states. Now, coming to the Ashtamudi wetland, now it is in Kollam district of Kerala. Okay. Now, next, UPSC has a habit of whether particular river is feeding the wetland or not. Now, there is no major river that is feeding this Ashtamudi wetland. Okay. Remember that there is only one small river. You no need to remember that is some Kalladi or something. Now, why the name Ashtamudi? Because there are some 8 channels that are feeding the Ashtamudi. Okay. Now, along with Ashtamudi, you have to remember certain other site also, that is Vembanad. Why? There are 3 important Ramsar sites in Kerala. One is Sastamkota, another one is Vembanad, and third one is Ashtamudi. Okay. Now, Vembanad is the longest lake in India and largest in Kerala. Okay. Now, other important thing is the second largest Ramsar site in India after the mangrove forests of West Bengal, Sundarbans. Okay. These are the facts you have to keep in mind. Now, these 3 are the Ramsar sites situated in the Kerala. Okay. Now, just see the map here. Identify the locations of Sastamkota here. Ashtamudi is here. North of it, there is Vembanad Coal. Now, UPSC has a habit of which rivers feeding. Now, Vembanad Coal. See, important rivers such as Periyar and Pamba rivers. Okay, these are important. These 2 flow into the Vembanad. Remember from the prelims perspective. Now, identify here, there is no wildlife sanctuary or tiger reserve directly, nearby this. Now, UPSC has a habit that Sastamkota or Ashtamudi is in the Periyar Tiger Reserve, is in the some wildlife sanctuary, Idikal wildlife sanctuary, Shindurne wildlife sanctuary, something like that. UPSC will ask like that. Okay, there is no wildlife sanctuary near here. Identify like this. Okay, these are the things you have to keep in mind, from the prelims perspective. Now, coming to the next article. Now, this article is saying that Ratnambore tigers and humans both struggle for space and survival. Now, what is the context of the article? The context of the article is that recently a person is died because of the tiger attack, and also the angry villagers killed the tiger. Now, in this way, both human wildlife conflict is happening in the Ratnambore Tiger Reserve in Rajasthan. Now, this is the context of the news. Now, from the examination perspective, what is important? Tiger reserves are important from the examination perspective, especially from the prelims. Now, previously, tiger reserves are asked in the examination, right? You have to match the tiger reserve and state, or tiger reserve or important river, something like that. So, okay, now this is a map of the Rajasthan. There are other tiger reserves also in the Rajasthan. Just see, identify here. Now, this Ratnambore Tiger Reserve in the eastern Rajasthan. See, this is the Ratnambore Tiger Reserve near Savai Madhopur, right? Now, next, Saliskat Tiger is also in the eastern side. Now, you can easily identify because western side of the Rajasthan is mostly desert, right? Now, eastern side is mostly a tropical deciduous. Okay? Tropical deciduous. Now, this Ratnambore also comes under the deciduous. Okay? Sariskar is Bharatpur, Keladio, Ramsagar. Things I remember this famous place of Mount Tebu. Tal Chapar is famous for black buck, right? So things like that, just remember the places so that it is easy to eliminate the options in the prelims examination. Now we will see certain facts regarding Ratnambore Tiger Reserve from the prelims perspective. Now you see Ratnambore Tiger Reserve, it is in the eastern part of the Rajasthan. Now it is at the junction of Aravalli and Vindhya Hills. Remember, UPSC may say that Ratnambore Tiger is in Satpura ranges. No, that is wrong because UPSC may interchange the hills, right? In previous PFQs, it is said like that. Now remember this. Now Ratnambore Tiger is majorly part of tropical dry deciduous. Okay. Now this Ratnambore Tiger is bounded to the north by the Banas River. Remember, this fact is very important, and to the south by Chambal River. Now UPSC has a habit of asking whether this river is passing through this forest or not, this park or not, something like that. Now Ratnambore Tiger Reserve is famous for Bengal tiger population. Okay. So there are other important tiger reserves in Rajasthan to be remembered. Sariska Tiger Reserve, Mukundra Hills Tiger Reserve, Ramgarh Vishdari Tiger Reserve, Dholpur Kharauli Tiger Reserve. Remember this tiger reserves so that it is easy for eliminating options. Now there are certain bodies that are mentioned in this news article because of the death of the tigers, the state asked the assistance of Wildlife Crime Control Bureau for the investigation. Now you have to know that Wildlife Crime Control Bureau is a statutory body established under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. There are other few bodies of statutory body, especially established under this act. You have to remember that because UPSC previously asked that which are the statutory bodies created under Wildlife Protection Act or Environment Protection Act 1986. Things like that, okay? Now, National Board for Wildlife Sanctuary, which is headed by the Prime Minister. Remember this fact, Prime Minister. It is also established under this 1972 WPA Act. Next, Central Zoo Authority, headed by the Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Okay, is also statutory body. All these five are statutory bodies. National Tiger Conservation Authority, Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, and the sanctuaries, national parks, conservation reserve, community reserves, tiger reserves. All these are the reserve places, especially regarding the forest, are declared under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. These are the things you have to remember, and you can use this films news in the mains examination. For example, in the previous article we have seen about Ashtamudi Lake. No, it is about pollution of a wetland. Now you can use such pollution of wetland because of the industrial sewage or household sewage in the conservation and biodiversity syllabus topic of GS paper 3. Okay, you can integrate like that. Don't limit yourself to the only prelims, right? Okay. Now you can use this article also. You can say that increasing anthropogenic pressure on the wildlife. Things like that you can use in the GS paper 1 also. If any question asks about the forest, wildlife, biodiversity. Now integrate the syllabus and current affairs topics like this. Okay. Okay. Now coming to the next article. Now this article is saying that there is a need of democratizing AI in a radically different approach. Now, what is the context of the news? See, articles related to the artificial intelligence are coming every day. So there is nothing much, very much new in this article. Now I will say very crux of the news. See, this article is saying that the future is of AI, artificial intelligence. Now AI is seeping into every sector, including the daily life of human beings. Now, in this context, in future economy, every sector, employment, all these things are decided by the AI. Now, in this context, if the future is AI, now those future is in the hands of the few tech giants. Okay, that is what this article is saying. Why? Because technological research company, very few companies such as Microsoft, Facebook, X company like Elon Musk, all these are controlling the AI technology recently because they have large amount of data infrastructure, especially cloud infrastructure, capital, and it is being said that for computation in artificial intelligence, a lot of energy is required for devices. Now they have capacity of capital to invest in this energy infrastructure. They have tools to integrate this artificial intelligence into various technological services, workflows. Now using of artificial intelligence will ensure that the work is seamless, efficient, right? Now in this way, it is very much beneficial. Now in future, there is a creation of dependency on these tech giants. Now that is what this article is saying. They have all the resources. Now this article is saying that government need to take the steps to ensure that there is a digital public infrastructure so that it suggested few suggestions. Sovereign cloud infrastructure so that it is very public. It can be used as small MSMEs, domestic companies especially. Why? Because these are the foreign companies, right? Now foreign companies may lead to the data export. Now we become digital slaves and we become market for them. Now that is what is saying. And these major tech giants are controlled by the Western giants, like Western companies, Western countries. No, this should not be happen. There is a need of data localization. There is a need of a responsible AI. Why it is meant by responsible AI? The benefits of AI should be given to everyone. It is fair and equitable. The data should be rational because AI is nothing but a data communication language, right? Because AI works on based on the data. It finds patterns within the data that is fed. Based on that, it gives certain results, right? Now, the data should be reasonable, rational, and it should be culture specific and country specific. And there is a need of supporting local startups to use AI, to develop AI, and creating open data platforms. Now, these are what the government need to do. That is what's said by this article. Now, this is the context of the news. Okay. Now, where you can use this in the examination perspective. Now, you can say that if any question comes in the GS paper 3, now how artificial intelligence will impact in the economy or GDP growth rate. Now, you can use there this article. Now, in GS paper 2, you can use this article in governance perspective, especially regarding data privacy, data protection, data monopolism. Okay. in that context, because this article is democratizing, because when there is a democratizing of data, because data is a new field, then there is a inclusive development, right? Otherwise there will be inequality. Now things like that in GS paper 2 also you can integrate this. Don't just read the news, just give yourself just 2 or 3 minutes so that you can integrate the same news into the multiple papers. Now this is what the article is saying. Now coming to the next article. Now this article is saying that center should include coking coal in the list of critical minerals. Now what is the context of the news? See, in India, we import 85% of the coking coal requirement, or we met our requirements of coking coal. About 85% of requirement is met through the imports. Now it leads to import bill, right? Now this creates dependency. When there is supply chain disruptions due to war, this affects the economy. Why it affects the economy? Because coking coal is a very important input in the steel sector. Now steel is a very important element in development of infrastructure, right? Now, see, steel as a sector contributes 2% of GDP. It creates an employment of 25 lakhs people, 2.5 million people employment. Now, in this way, coking coal is a very important. Now, why coking coal is important in the steel sector, especially? See, coke is a very important input of steel. Now, coke can be produced by burning the coal in the absence of oxygen, right? Now, this coking coal is burned in the absence of oxygen. It produces coke. Now, this coke is used in the put in the furnace so that it removes oxygen if it burns the coke in the furnace, so that to produce pure iron, which can be used in the making of the steel. Now this is what the process, that's why we use coking coal. Now in India, coking coal reserves are very less. Now that is what they're saying. Now this article is saying that India have enough resources or reserves of the coal, such as India have fifth largest reserves of the coal. That is what mentioned in this article. Fifth largest reserves of the coal. We consume second largest consumer in the world. Now, in this context, coal as such is very important. If we declare coal as a critical mineral, the private sector investment will increase. There is increase in investment in exploration, excavation, mining, technology. Because by declaring such that there are a lot of legislative incentives, regulatory incentives, tax incentives, and certain regulative flexibility will be there. Now, that is what this article is saying. From the examination perspective, why these things are important? If you see the previous few questions, coal as a theme is very much repeated multiple times. For example, if you see with reference to coal-based thermal power plants in India, this was asked in 2023. Consider the following statements: none of them uses seawater. None of them is set up in a water stress district. None of them is privately owned. How many of the above statements are correct? Things like that. Okay. Here the answer is none. Now, another important question that was asked previously, I think this was asked in 2018. Coal sector was nationalized by the government of India under Indira Gandhi. Now coal blocks are allocated in lottery basis. This one wrong. The first statement is correct. Till recently, India imported coal to meet the shortages of domestic supply, but now India itself is insufficient in coal production. Now again, this is also wrong. The answer is A. Now this saying that whether India imports coal. Yes, India imports coal. Now this is the first fact you have to remember. And India depends on the coking coal imports at very extent. Now you have to know the difference between coking coal and thermal coal. See, coking coal has certain features. It contains more carbon, less ash, and less moisture than thermal coal. What is meant by thermal coal? Thermal coal is something which is used in the production of thermal electricity, right? Okay. Now you have to remember certain things as per this article. Now, critical minerals. What does mean by critical? Critical doesn't mean that it is rare. No, it is not rare, or nor it is insufficient or deficit. Critical means that it is critical for the development of economy. Why? Because it is used in the critical sectors such as steel, which are very important sectors. Next, national security. Why national security? Because these kind of minerals are very important for development of infrastructure. Especially, for example, recently we are talking about green energy. Green energy required, for example, minerals like solar panels, lithium, cobalt. All these are the critical minerals. Because of these are critical sectors also. Technological innovation, for example, semiconductor industries, which requires a lot of lithium, nickel, cobalt, chromium. All these things are the critical minerals. Now, in this context, coal should also be included in the critical minerals. That is what this article is saying. Now, from the examination perspective, just remember these things. Which are the following are the critical minerals. So UPSC may ask like that. Okay. Now, under which act these critical minerals are declared? It is the Mines and Minerals Development Act of 1957. Just remember the fact. Okay. Under the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act of 1957. Okay. Remember this fact. Okay. Now, which of the following are declared? See, antimony, beryllium, bismuth, cobalt, copper, gallium, germanium, graphite, indium, lithium, molybdenum, nickel, phosphorus, potash, silicon, tantalum, tin, titanium, tungsten, zirconium, selenium, cadmium. Why? Because in previously it was asked that which of the following are major minerals, which of the following are minor minerals in the prelims examination. In the UPSC may ask that which of the following are considered as a critical minerals, especially in the Mines and Minerals Development Act of 1957. If it asks like that, you have to ready, right? Now remember these facts of a coal formation. Now these are the stages of coal formation: peat, lignite, bituminous coal, and anthracite. Now you have to remember anthracite is a coal of higher carbon content, right? Now majorly in India we use bituminous coal. Now largest producers of coking coal were China, right? Okay. From the examination perspective, you have to remember at least these facts. Now some of the facts you can use in the mains examination also, especially in GS paper 3 economy sector, like importance of steel sector or industrial locations factors in GS paper 1 also. You can use these things about the steel, because iron and steel industry is one of the important thing repeatedly asking in GS paper 1. Okay, right. Now coming to the next article. Now this article is saying that socialism in India means a welfare state, not a dictatorial dogma. That is what Chief Justice of India said. Now why Chief Justice of India said? Now there are certain people recently who filed a petition in the court to remove the words like socialist, secular from the preamble. Why they appeal like that? Because these two words are added through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. But this is the time of emergency. But during emergency, the situation is there is no chance of criticism. People's voice are silenced. Political leaders are arrested. Now, there is no debate, discussion, things like that. Now, in this context, these are included in the constitution through amendment when there is no proper legislative discussion or will of the people. Now, it is said that the petitioner is also saying that while enactment of the constitution just after the independence, there is no inclusion of the words like this. Now, this indicating that it is against the people, now indicating after certain years of the constitution, that especially during the emergency time. Now, this is what the saying. Now, the petitioner is also saying that India is not a socialistic in terms of structure of governance. Now, this is what the arguments of the petitioners. Now, the court said that, especially Chief Justice of India said that socialist, seculars are the ideals and values that need not to be included in the constitution. They are the fundamental values of the constitution. That means constitutional morality. They are the basic features of the constitution that are embodied in the values of the founding fathers of the constitution, our freedom fighters. They are embodied in the culture of the people of India. So socialism does not literally mean that socialism of Western countries or socialism what is pursued by the communist countries, because Indian model of socialism is a democratic socialism which embraces both private participation of private players, individualism and welfareism. Now this is what the argument of the Chief Justice of India. Hence, whether it is included later or earlier, these words are very much suitable because they are part of the conscience of the constitution. Now this is what the court is saying. Hence, Indian socialism is a democratic socialism and it obligate for welfare state along with private participation. Now, the court also said that private sector benefited a lot in terms of technological upgradation, contribution to the employment. So, Indian socialism does not restrict any individual activities, any private activities. Okay, that's why you often say that Indian economy is a mixed economy. Even after liberalization, privatization, globalization of 1991, still we have a lot of influence of socialistic values with the influence of welfare state, right? Now, this is what the article is saying. Now, where you can use this in the examination perspective, you can use this in the GS paper 1 in the concepts like socialism, communism, and secularism syllabus topics. Or you can use in the GS paper 2 also if any question comes on the secularism, etc. Okay? Just link what you have studied in the newspaper to the mains examination. Okay? Now coming to the next article. Now this article is saying that urgent deadline. What does it mean? Poverty and climate change must be tackled urgently by the G20 countries. Now the context of the news is that recently it has been said that both COP29 and G20 are concluding, but there is no conclusive resolution taken in these conferences. Now, this is one of the criticism. Now, it is being said that global south is facing the issues of hunger, poverty, climate change, vulnerability. Now, all these are faced by the global south, but developed countries are not taking any action towards this, or not embracing the problems of the developing countries either through technological transfer or finance. Now, it is being said that especially the arguments of the Indian leaders is that presently the organization's leadership is in the global south. For example, if you see G20 countries in 2022, it was host is Indonesia in Bali. It is one of the part of global south. After that, in 2023, India. Now it is Brazil, right? And the next year it is South Africa. Now all these are part of the global south. Now to address the problems of the global south, this leadership has to be leveraged and pass a resolutions that benefit the developing countries and least developed countries. Now we have to leverage this leadership. Now that is what this article is saying. Now in the year 2026, now this G20 leadership is taken by the USA again. So before that time, we have to pass a resolutions, especially under the leadership of the global south, to address the problems of economic development, climate vulnerabilities, economy, ecology, health, and technology. Now this is what the article is saying. Now here in this article, the Brazilian president, the host country, specifically mentioned that now because of the rapid economic growth, there is increasing inequality, especially the possession of ownership of wealth, income. Now we need to tax the wealthiest person with 2% so that it can generate around 200 billion revenue. Now this can be used for the welfare of the poor, addressing the issues of climate change. Now he suggested one of these challenges. Now another arguments put by the developing countries was that now these global conferences, especially UNFCCC, G20, things like that, they are misused or not properly used. Why? Because in these platforms, these are only used for discussing Western problems. Election, for example, recently there is a lot of discussion happening on the what is the impact of Trump election or this election or that election in Europe, and discussion of wars such as Russia and Ukraine. No, you are wasting time on every time discussion about Russia, discussing about USA, Western problems, things like that. When you will discuss about the global South problems, now the focus is diffused. Now this article is saying that the focus in this conference is diffused because of the global disruptions, especially political instability in West Asia and Russia, and the elections of the USA and Europe, things like that. Now this is what the article is saying. We need to focus on the global South first of all, because even if we discuss anything related to the wars like Russia and Ukraine, there is no conclusive statement that is taken against Russia also. Now, then why you are discussing things like that? This is what the argument of the people. In this article, it is mentioned that. Now, next important thing is global administration. Now, it has been said that global administration should be in the hands of the global South. What is meant by global administration? That means international organizations such as World Bank, IMF, and many other international organizations that can be used for social and economic development and cultural advancement, technological enhancement. All this should be in the hands of global South, because ultimately the negative effects of all these things is on the developing countries, right? Now that this is what the argument. Now in this context, remember one of the argument given by the Minister of External Affairs, Jaishankar. Once it is said that Europe should not think that Europe problems are global problems and global problems are not Europe problems. No, in this way, this is very important. Conferences like this should discuss the problems of global South and how to address their problems. That is what is mentioned in this article. Now, how you can use this? Now, statements like this, it is said by the global administration, global South, like technical words or COP20. You can use this in GS paper too. In IR, around 50 marks is coming. Around 4 questions are asking in the GS paper too. Now, you can use this word said by the Brazil Prime Minister, taxing the wealth. No, global administration. You can use in GS paper too. Okay. Now coming to the next article. Now this article is saying that disqualification proceedings against MLAs put on hold. Now what is the context of the news? Now what happened is in Himachal Pradesh, certain MLAs are elected as a chief parliamentary secretaries. Now in this context, it was upheld in the court that these chief parliamentary secretary position is comes under the office of profit. Now office of profit is one of the conditions for disqualification of legislators. Okay. Now, in this context, High Court of Himachal Pradesh said that start proceedings of disqualification against these MLAs. This is what the High Court said. Now, these people appealed in the Supreme Court. Now, Supreme Court said that put a hold on this disqualification process. Now, this is the context of the news. Now, from the examination perspective, why it is relevant. Now, if you see GS paper 2 syllabus here, now it is clearly mentioned that Parliament and state legislatures structure, functioning, and conduct of the business, powers and privileges, and issues arising out of this. Now, powers and privileges also include, or issues are arising out of includes office of profit. Now, from the claims perspective also, if you see previous year questions, it was clearly asked about office of profit. Now, it is said that consider the following statements. The Parliament Prevention of Disqualification Act 1959 exempts several posts from disqualification on the grounds of office of profit. Okay. Now, second statement is saying that the above mentioned act was amended 5 times. Now, the term office of profit is well defined in the Constitution of India. Now, you know, third statement is wrong. Now, if you remove third statement, you can directly come into the answer 1 and 2. So, it is a disqualification criteria for removing the legislators' office of profit. But there are certain positions which are exempted under the Prevention of Disqualification Act of 1959. Okay. Now, we will see certain fact from the prelims perspective regarding office of profit and disqualification. Okay. Now, before discussing the facts of prelims regarding office of profit, first of all, understand that what is office of profit. See, office of profit means that by holding that position, by virtue of it, you are getting certain profit against the public interest, or it is inclining towards personal interest. So there is some amount of personal gain by holding that position, right? As a public servant, as a leader, you are holding the public position for doing the public service, right? But by virtue of holding that, you cannot gain some personal gain. That is what office of profit. Now, why it is important to uphold the office of profit? Because we need to maintain the principle of separation of power. Now, separation of power is part of the basic feature of the constitution. Why? Because we have three organs, right? Legislative, executive, and judiciary. We need to maintain separation of power, these three things, between these three things. Why? To maintain the independent functioning without having any bias of decision making, whether it is judiciary, executive, and legislature. Now, that is the importance of separation of power. To ensure separation of power, a legislator should not hold any office of profit in executive. Likewise, a executive should not hold any office of profit in judiciary, and vice versa. Things like that. Next important thing is upholding constitutional responsibility. For example, it means that doing the duty. For example, executive has doing a duty of implementing the schemes, but while implementing the schemes, he should not get benefited by implementing. For example, giving contracts to the his kin or kith, things like that. Okay, there should be separation. Someone else should take in the contracts or things like that. Okay, this is also comes under the office of profit. Doing duty. Next, ensuring checks and balances. If same person is holding different positions in different organs of the government, then there is a quid pro quo, right? That means even if is something wrong, it won't be reported because it is under his control. So to ensure that, to not to have things like that, there is a need of checks and balance. Hence, there's a person should not hold office of profit. Now, other important thing is prevention of conflict of interest, right? While making decision, there is often issues of conflict of interest, right? For example, if our decision is impacting the decisions of others, in benefiting in a way towards us. For example, recently it has been said that there is a recusal of judgment by the Supreme Court judge as it involves a person, Lieutenant Governor, who is known to him. No, justice not only to be done, it seems to be done. That is what the principle, right? In that way, he avoided. Like that, to avoid the conflict of interest, a person should avoid the positions of office of profit. Now, this is what the explanation or from the analysis from the mains perspective, right? Now, from prelims perspective, you have to know certain facts. Now, there is no proper clear definition of office of profit given either in the Constitution or Representation of the People Act 1951. These are the things you have to remember. The first thing. Now, next, how you can decide whether a person is holding office of profit. No, there is no such criteria to declare whether a position is office of profit or not. But various decisions of the Supreme Court said that whether a particular position is office of profit or not. For example, it said that whether a government is responsible for appointing that individual. The government has authority to terminate the appointment. What are the powers that the person is getting? What is the remuneration that person is getting? What is the source of revenue, whether it is from the government source or what? How much ever extent of the power, what he can influence in the decision making. Things like that, you have to take as a conditions or criteria for declaring whether a person is taken office of profit or not. Okay. Now you can these things use in the mains examination as it is given by the Supreme Court itself. Next, articles you have to remember. Article 1 or 2 at the central level, Article 191 at the state level saying that a person will be ineligible to be elected as a member of parliament if they hold any office of profit under the government of India or any state government. It will lead to disqualification. Now the same thing at the state level is done by the Article 191. Okay. Now certain positions are exempted under the Prevention of Disqualification Act. You have to remember these things like ministers, whether it is union ministers, state ministers, leader of opposition, chairmen of the bodies such as National Commission for Minorities, Scheduled Castes, Scheduled Tribes, National Commission for Women, things like that. Okay. Now, other important thing, whether who decides this, whether a person is holding office of profit. Now, it is mentioned in Article 103 of the Constitution said if any question arises, whether a person holding office of profit or not, it should be decided by the president. It should be referred to the president. Now, his decision is final in this. Now, but before giving his decision, a president shall obtain the opinion of the election commission and shall act according to such opinion. Okay, these things are very important from the examination perspective, both from prelims and main. Okay, now that's all for today. Thank you. Have a nice day.